This is Cher, and I'm here with Jason and Rob. Guys, if you had to describe this podcast in 5 words or less, what would you say?
I'm going to go with Wile E. Coyote guzzling gasoline.
I'm thinking climate change, diarrhea, hurricane.
Are you serious? Maybe I should do this thing on my own.
Fine. It's a show about how to stay sane in a world where there's too many people consuming too much stuff and the planet can't take it anymore.
You had me at diarrhea.
Caution, if you're allergic to 4-letter words, you might want to try a different podcast. Hey, Jason and Cher, can you guys imagine putting on a Santa Claus suit and going out to a gas station to do a protest on Christmas Eve?
No.
No, and what would I be protesting other than Christmas?
Of course, well,
Yeah, exactly.
You probably should, but of course you're protesting climate change.
All right.
Okay, in the Santa suit?
Well, it's Christmas.
Right,
Come on.
okay. So you're like being half festive and half like shut this thing down?
Yeah, and the whole idea is, as somebody drives up to fill their tank on
They're just
Christmas
trying to go
Eve,
see their family that lives 500 miles
right,
away.
yeah. Well, but you're giving them a
Christmas Eve?
pamphlet,
Yeah.
and you're talking to them saying, how evil this Exxon station is.
Right. Oh, that's a conundrum.
No, I can't really imagine doing that, to be honest.
Yeah, well, this actually happened, and the protester, he was just so upset by climate change that he's kind of grasping at straws. This is what it's come down to. I'm going to spend my Christmas Eve this way, and climate change is obviously there's some reasons to protest, but there's all these other things that he could be doing.
That's just a lead in to maybe, 20 other things that are all related.
Things like what?
Oh, population, biodiversity loss, ocean acidification, persistent organic pollutants. Did I say overpopulation? Did I say?
You're like a veritable list guy here. You can just keep rolling these things off.
I don't want to bore people, though, because they don't want to talk about this.
I mean, people protest economic stuff all the time. That's probably the thing you see most often.
Injustice, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, protests of Bank of America, protests of, remember Occupy Wall Street? I mean, there's all that stuff, too, which actually hasn't gotten any better.
Well, and don't even get started on politics these days.
Right.
I mean, how many marches, I feel like we're heading back toward the 60s or something.
Well, if you're pamphleteering in a Santa Claus suit on Christmas Eve, obviously you've probably reached some bottom, right? You've tried other things, I imagine, and it doesn't seem to be working, right? So you're Hail Marying here.
Tried other things like what, mushrooms or something?
Come up with some new ideas, fresh approach.
Maybe rate your congressperson.
Right? Oh, right, yeah.
Lobby.
Or do the dumbest thing of all, work for a nonprofit that's trying to combat these problems.
I don't know, whoever does that, there's
idiots.
something wrong with them.
Idiots.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's us. You should know that a Cher runs a nonprofit where I work, and Jason's on the board of it. So it's that's a post-carbon institute. So we're all about these issues with energy and environment and biodiversity and politics and economics.
I mean, this guy obviously is committed, he's caring, and something set him over the edge maybe a little bit. But what do you do in this? I mean, we've probably all had moments in our lives where we're just like,
totally.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I feel like you can look back on your life and find those moments where you're just going, what the hell happened? Why are these people acting this way? And
why are things so wrong? Yeah.
Why are things? I got an example. Okay, in 1996, I'm in Borneo, a big island in the Indonesian archipelago in Southeast Asia. I mean, just one of the most amazing places on the planet.
What the hell are you doing in Borneo?
I used to be a biologist that would go around the world collecting plants and studying biodiversity. And
let me just interrupt you and let our listeners know that Jason he's a brilliant dude. He's a PhD conservation biologist, but whatever. I don't want to pump you up too much. I'll let you finish your story.
Well, you could pump him up, and I'll knock him down.
You knock him back down.
Yeah, it's all even out in the end.
Yeah.
What I didn't say that he's also an idiot.
So yeah, I mean, well, I kind of felt like, am I doing any good, right? I'm a conservation biologist, like you're saying. I'm studying biodiversity. And at some point you go like, can I make any difference, right? This is probably what this guy was doing in front of the Exxon station. And so, there are moments where it hits you. And so I was on Borneo, and Borneo has this big mountain called Mount Kinabalu, and it stands out relative to all the other, part of the landscape. It's this isolated massif of granite. And along its slopes, because it goes at high elevation, there's all these endemic plants. So they are and animals, things that live nowhere else in the world. And so I was hiking up that mountain and staying there for like a week and a half and collecting plants. And the forests there are just gorgeous. And it's full of like rhododendron diversity is huge, and these pitcher plants. And the lowlands have these dipterocarp trees, which are the tallest trees in the tropics.
When did you say that name again?
Dipterocarp.
I think that's a fish, dude.
Oh, God, probably. But then, I had to go. I got kind of like a sinus infection up there, and it was all humid and cold, and I had to get out and recover. And I decided that I was with another biologist at the time, and we decided we would get out. We both had this infection in our heads and couldn't breathe very well.
And it's never left. You still have an infected head.
So you went to Vegas.
Well, right? we got a bus. We said, let's go to the warm coast, Sandikan, which is sort of like northeast on the coast, and let's just like rest and figure out how to clear out here. But we get on this bus at the kind of on the slopes of Mount Kinabalu, which is a park, and tourists there. And we get the bus to Sandakan, and as we drive off the slopes, where I'm in this national park, you realize that everywhere else where we are on this highway, at least as far as I can see, is just devastated. Right? I mean, I've been walking through some of the most rich, beautiful forests and landscapes above tree line, and getting these vistas in the world, and then it's just deforestation and palm plantations.
Oh, so like you mean for like making palm oil?
Palm oil, right? Which is going into cookies and crackers and shit, and
pretty much everything that an American diet consists of.
Yeah, and then they blow it up for like biodiesel, and so it's just taking over, and it's just this monocrop where I was in this paradise, and then we get to Sandakan, and there's an orangutan reserve. Okay, so I recover a little bit and I can walk again and breathe. And we go to
you infected at least half a dozen orangutans. You're probably responsible for wiping them out.
Not
it's
even
only because he was kissing them.
Right.
Well, I was so close I probably could have. So you're walking through this little orangutan reserve, and you realize that these orangutans had been sort of rescued because their forest is being destroyed, and they end up like on the edge of villages, and then they get called up, and some orangutan reserve people show up, and they capture them, and they bring them to this reserve, and then they got to feed them like they're in a zoo, but they're in a forest. It's freaking bizarre, and there's like little orangutan babies all playing and stuff, and I'm going, oh,
were they wearing those cute diapers that you see?
No, they could poop in nature at least.
Yeah. Was Clint Eastwood there? Remember those Clint Eastwood orangutan movies from way back?
Shut up!
Right Turn, Clyde.
This affected me. Rob likes to go back to movie references any chance he gets.
I'm sorry, it's a disease.
Any Which Way But Loose.
Yeah, no, it was Any Which Way You Can was the sequel. Every Which Way But Loose was the original.
Oh, God. All right. This is what I have to deal with. You have to deal with a culture that just like has got all your junk in the head, and the important thing.
Yeah, you hear orangutan and you think Clint
Eastwood.
Yeah, you
think
right.
Clyde. It was great. He was wearing a diaper and a wristwatch, like all orangutans should.
Is that what you saw when you were there?
They were cute, and they were.
Were they wearing watches?
No. Oh. Gosh darn it. But I felt bad because obviously, there's this weird thing. You're fascinated. Like there's this amazing creature. This is brilliant. They're really smart, and they have this amazing lifestyle, living in the trees in these dipterocarp forests. And
say that again.
Dipterocarp, and they build these nests in the trees, like these nest-dwelling giant apes, and they move around. They eat leaves, and they have these adorable babies that can like swing from tree to tree. But you realize what it was, that we were the other great ape, that was just destroying their homes. and for our stupid palm oil and right now, like as of 2018, there are about 500,000 great apes left in the world. Now, it's not just orangutans, but that's orangutans and chimpanzees and gorillas combined. There's only like 500,000. And so the world, humans, like the other great ape.
Can we be nest-dwelling, tree-bound great apes? That would be a lot of fun.
We might get there at some point.
We lost that
500,000. That's less than
much.
that's less than the city of San Francisco.
Exactly. And so, but human population grows by about that much every 2 days. Like we're adding to the planet every 2 days.
Every
500,000.
About 500,000.
New monkeys, new apes, new whatever.
Just a bipedal
So
type.
let's say it's Friday, because that's a great day.
Yeah.
And you're saying by Sunday,
Yeah, there's another 500,000 of us, which
of
is
us
equivalent-
miserable palm oil swilling.
Yeah. So none of this stuff, none of this nature stuff has a chance. It doesn't matter how much I study it, or if you see the connections, like how am I going to fight the economy and the consumer demand and all that stuff?
Couldn't you write a scientific paper about it? Wouldn't that do it?
That's
or
the kind of
dress
stuff
up
I
in
was.
a Santa suit out there. You might have sweated a lot in Borneo.
Well, I almost feel like the Santa suit. This is the thing. It's just like is how insane it all is. The Santa suit may be just as useful as writing a freaking scientific paper that I spend 6 months doing and get peer reviewed and published and have like 8 people read it.
Right. Well, you talk about that population edition, and to me, that brings up an experience that I had when I was a kid. I had this best friend. You never have a best friend like you had in second grade.
Oh,
you do the best stuff. Like we used to hang out in
Legos.
We hung out in his dog house. Like he had this dog named Viking.
Yeah.
We would get
kicked
in
the
there.
dog out?
Yeah, we would get in there and read books and stuff.
That's cool.
We would read books about climate change.
Right.
Sure you did.
Did you read the Lorax? I mean, that
Oh, of course. Yeah.
No, they were waiting for the film to come
needs.
out. They didn't read it. They were waiting for the film.
Right. If the Lorax had been an 80s movie, I would have been all over it. But anyway, this friend of mine, he was a Chinese American. His mom had immigrated from China. And when you went over to his house, it was cool. They had like these vases and scrolls and sculptures. Where I'm from a suburb of Atlanta. It's kind of a hillbilly zone. And, like to see these things, I was like, oh, that's odd.
Right.
But the weirdest decoration in their house was in the study. They had this room. It was an awesome room. It had like a cowhide and a TV, and we used to hang out in there a lot. But they had this up on the wall were photos of presidents.
Okay.
It was Lyndon Johnson and Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter. That's kind of weird because you'd think you see that in your elementary school or something, but
Yeah, at the post office.
Right.
yeah, exactly. Like having, I digress, but when I worked for the federal government, George Bush and Dick Cheney greeted me every day on the way in.
Nice.
Yeah, the Dick Cheney smile, like, welcome to work, you jackass.
Talk about driving you crazy.
Yeah. But so anyway, and the weird thing about these photos is they're all signed too, with a little message.
Wow. Big donors to both parties? What's going on?
They actually got signatures from these presidents?
Yeah. It was like happy
They got a
birthday.
signature from Richard Nixon?
Yeah, happy birthday, Richard Nixon. I'm not a crook, by the way. So I you got like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out my friend's older brother, this guy named Bobby Wu.
Who?
Bobby Wu.
Okay.
Nice poetic rhyme.
Yeah, good.
He was the 200 millionth American.
Uh-huh.
So
Bobby was.
Yeah. So there was apparently this little furor. Furor? How do you say that word? I don't know.
Just don't say furor.
Okay, so there was a lot of energy around the idea of who's the 200 millionth baby going to be. So Life magazine was watching this. Yeah, they had a count going. So a baby's born, like, well, that's 199 million.
We didn't do this with 300, right?
A little bit. A little bit. But so the 200 millionth was Bobby. And so Life came and snapped his photo, and there was this, full page spread on him.
Was he cute? Was he adorable?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
It's a baby. Not as good as the orangutans.
No.
But, okay, so 200 million, that's a big number, right? It's kind of hard to conceptualize. But, you just mentioned a share of the 300 millionth. Well, so Bobby was born in 1967. The 300 millionth American came along on October 17th, 2006. So it took less than 40 years to add 100 million people to the good old U.S. of A. So that's like adding 10 more states the size of Georgia, where we were.
Yeah.
Or like adding about 180 cities the size of Atlanta.
Jeez.
In under 40 years. 180 cities. Atlanta's not a little place.
No, Atlanta's not.
Yeah.
And they all get really lousy baseball teams and
don't start talking about the Braves.
I loved
all right?
the Braves back then.
Dale Murphy.
Right,
man.
that's true. The 80s, they were America's team.
Phil Niekro was incredible. This old guy, the knuckleballer.
Yeah.
Man.
He can probably still throw that. So worldwide, it's even nuttier. Yeah. So at the time that Bobby was born, we had 3.5 billion, which that's an inconceivably large number.
Right.
Yeah.
But now we've got 7.5 billion. We more than doubled that.
By comparison, U.S. is doing great.
Yeah. Well, and of course, here's the weird thing is we're all about economic growth, growing the economy.
Yeah.
And half of that equation means growing population. So
Right.
if we have a goal of continuously growing the economy, then we've got to keep adding people.
And everyone should know that Rob literally wrote a book about this called Enough is Enough. Available at all fine bookstores.
Yeah, you can find it anywhere, but
good.
Good. Or in a trash heap somewhere.
In a burn pile.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes great kindling. I mean, you want to wait for the apocalypse. You can have plenty of these books to just light
Enough
them
is
up.
enough.
A page a day, I say.
Yeah. Wow, that's going to be a kind of a light fire.
Yeah. Well, just to get it started. It's just
Okay.
Kindling.
Kindling.
Well, there's not going to be any trees. Maybe we can set on some some orangutans on fire.
Fur. This is the fur's burnable.
There won't be orangutans left by that point. Sorry.
Only diapers. We can set the diapers on
Exactly.
fire.
Plenty of diapers.
Everyone
Well,
loves
we
this.
can set the palm oil plantations on fire.
That's right. So yeah, it blows me away the exponential growth that we're seeing in the economy, both in the numbers of people and in the consumption. That's probably the part that it's kind of hard to blame people for having sex and having babies, but geez, the amount of crap that we consume, the amount of palm oil that goes down our into our guts.
Yeah, and all this comes back to energy. I mean, you're talking about the growth in human population. Well, per capita energy consumption since 1850 has grown 814%. That's per capita, right? So 8-fold increase in how much energy we consume in that time.
Per capita, but then multiplied by the people.
So,
right.
So great-great-grandpappy, he lit a match a day, and now you're running a nuclear fusion power plant or something.
It's not quite that extreme, but I mean, and that's just the per capita. So you total it together, and you realize we're consuming way more energy, and for me, that is actually something that drives me crazy all the time, and actually has sort of woken me up even in the course of this work. I started doing climate change work after doing other kinds of, social cause nonprofit work. And because I was really, really worried about climate change. And it took me really understanding energy, I think, to really get the crux of the problem that we're dealing with. Climate change is a symptom, of kind of the energy paradigm that we're in. So is human population. It's a symptom. The fact that these orangutans are losing, the fact that we can grow these palm oil plantations.
Right.
The people in Borneo are not growing these palm oil, planting these plantations just for their own consumption.
No.
They're doing it for a world market.
It's all export, Yeah,
and that market's made possible by the fact that we've got all this relatively abundant, cheap energy.
Yeah, I mean, they're running chainsaws, they're running bulldozers, they're putting in roads. I mean, they're not doing this with pickaxes.
Right.
Well, they are doing it with teams of forced labor of orangutans, right? They got orangutan chain gangs, right?
Well, there's definitely
We gotta put them to
a
work,
lot of
at least.
exploitation that's happening of people, right?
Yeah.
But it's all made possible by the fact that we've found these abundant sources of magical energy. And I'll tell you, even doing this work here at Post Carbon Institute, being exposed to these issues and trying to probe them and think more deeply about these things, it was, I don't even remember how many years ago, but I was trying to run the numbers a little bit on thinking about the value of the energy that we have. And part of the problem is that we throw out these numbers. People talk about BTUs. They talk about, kilowatts and kilowatt hours. And
well,
all this stuff.
let's be clear.
Anything, right?
Physicists and engineers talk that way. Most of us don't know what the hell any of that is.
It doesn't mean anything to most people at all, right? But when you actually start thinking about how much value there is, it really is magical.
You got to put it in dollar value because that's all people.
Yeah, put it in dollar value or put it in human labor value.
Okay,
so I was trying to crunch these numbers, and I had to talk to like people that were smarter than me and were real experts, just to confirm these numbers, right?
That's not
hard
you
to
guys.
Find.
Well, it's not us,
no.
But you can go back to that trash heap and find plenty of people smarter than you.
Well, that's true. That is true.
I'm sorry. Cher is actually my boss, so any chance I can take to throw a dig in, I got to do that.
And the fact that we're recording this disallows me to punch you in the face.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. No. So, like, take a barrel of oil, right? A barrel of oil right now, I think it's selling for something like $80 a barrel of oil. Well, so what does that barrel of oil represent? How much energy is in that thing? It's 40. There's 42 gallons of crude oil in a barrel, right?
I'm going to go with 12. That's my answer.
12 what?
12. That's just it. 12.
That's it. Okay.
I
will say 42. 42 for Douglas Adams fans out there.
That's a big number. That's important.
That's a very important number, 42. I won't digress into it. But so 42 gallons of crude oil, that when they go and refine the stuff, they're able to produce about 20 gallons of gasoline, about 11 gallons of diesel out of that. Which is great, right? So you put 20 gallons of gas in your car and you can drive down the road for, whatever it is, 400 miles maybe if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. But if you think about it, that $80 that you spent to get those 42 gallons of crude oil, that when you do the conversion, you look at what the actual energy value of that's 5.7 million BTUs. Okay, mm-hmm. BTUs, like we said, doesn't mean anything to anybody, right? But that's sort of the standard number that's used.
Well, that's all that's left of the British Empire, right?
Right,
British thermal units.
Exactly. That's right. And there's 5.7 million of them. And so 5.7 million BTUs. If you convert that to thinking about like electricity, running lights and stuff in your house, it's 1,700 kilowatt hours. Well, think about that. I know that number doesn't mean anything. I'll put it in the context of human labor. Okay, so Jason, you got a garden here, right? In your backyard. We're at your house right now, actually. Yeah. You got a garden out there. You're trying to rip out, weeds, plant stuff, harvest, whatever.
I'm working, yeah.
So if you're working hard, you might be producing about 70 watts.
That's about right for me. Yes.
Of energy, right?
In Jason's case, I'm thinking 50 watts.
No, it's 70. I've done the math.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
For you, it's like 20 because you just sit around, right?
I can point at stuff. Hey, can you harvest that, please?
Feed me. Yeah.
So over the course of a day, let's say you're working for 8 hours,
sure.
over the course of the day.
I never do that, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, let's pretend you're like a real productive part of humanity. Okay. All right. Let's pretend. Go with me here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's you're going to basically be producing 0.6 of 1 kilowatt hour. Remember, I said there were 1,700 kilowatt hours in a barrel of crude oil, right? So you're producing in one day 0.6 of 1 kilowatt hour,
Ouch.
Right?
Yeah.
Working hard for 8 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you actually try to take that, what you're producing in the course of a day through your human labor, sweating your butt off, and you divide that into a barrel of oil, well, that's over 2,800 days of your time working 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
It would take you 2,800
That's
days.
Many years.
That's 11 years. That's 11 years.
That's a long prison sentence.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like you take the average salary, let's take a salary of $45,000 a year. Okay?
Yeah.
So $45,000 a year, and you're working about 250 days over the course of the year. You got some vacation breaks. On Christmas, you dress up in a Santa suit, and you go and you protest at the gas station, whatever you're doing on breaks, right?
I got lifestyle.
So $45,000. You take that amount of days, that you're working. That's 11 years of labor over that time. Okay, that's $500,000 of a salary. If you're paying somebody $45,000 a year,
right?
That is the energetic value of that barrel of oil.
And we just
paid $80 for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, you think about that, and first of all, like, that's why I had to double check my math. This got to be wrong. Does this make any sense? People talk about how rational the market is.
No, it doesn't.
Right?
It's not. It's
That's
completely
not
idiotic.
rational.
Right. It
You
should
know,
be priced so much, but it's just supply and demand, and marginal demand, marginal supply. So,
Well, and of course you left out the problems of actually burning the stuff and what happens. Like, that's not included in the price.
Right.
it's
So,
not. Right.
so let's say you take, people talk about externalities, right? So you say, well, what about all the costs, associated with consuming that resource? And you internalize those costs, right? So you're going to increase that, and people talk about different numbers for what you'd have to include. But even those numbers don't even come close to the energetic value of a barrel of crude oil. And what do we do with this stuff? We fart around with it. We get on airplanes to go to Vegas, to roll the dice or whatever we're doing.
you ever
Go to
water ski?
Disneyland.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to just leave a leaf blower on nonstop, like 24 hours around the
Yeah,
clock.
yeah. The neighbors
You might
love
as
it.
well, because it's so cheap to do, right?
Right. No, it's just, and that's exactly right. It's complete madness. And you know what burns a lot of fuel? Airplanes.
Well, sure, yeah.
I had a pretty scary but illuminating journey on an airplane, right?
Yeah.
I used to fly around quite a bit to go to places like Borneo and
Vegas.
there's not huge botanical collections to be had in Vegas unless you're in front of like the big hotels or in their courtyard.
Palm. Isn't there Palms Hotel?
Doesn't that Venetian place, like, they got canals inside?
Oh, yeah.
There must be like a gallery
They
forest
probably have
lining
a
it.
few indoor
I'm sure the
trees.
biodiversity of Vegas has been enhanced by all the pumping of water and all the landscaping.
The plastic diversity in Vegas is incredible.
It's incredible.
Absolutely.
But I'm on this.
On human beings and in their products.
Right.
Yeah, but this is kind of. I'm on this plane, right, and we're reaching cruising altitude, right, and I got a window seat kind of over the wing. I love window seats, and
Except for the damn wing seat.
well, that's not the best. Okay, I agree, but that's what the best I could do.
Beggars can't be choosers.
I do like smelling the fuel because it reminds me of all that stuff that you were talking about, Asher.
So I'm looking out, and it's a nice view. I love looking at the Earth from high up and seeing the patterns on the landscape, and kind of nerd out. I can stare at that all day.
And you could tell that the Earth is flat, right? I mean, that's
Exactly. You know,
you
it's
go
flat.
up there to prove that
There's,
to yourself.
Why is there a debate? Well, there's a little engine explosion, and there's this
Little engine
Well,
explosion.
it wasn't massive, like the whole wing flew off, but there, it's like something happened.
So wait,
and this-
you're on a plane and you see flames coming out of the engine.
Yeah, coming out the back of the engine. All right, so I do that thing where you reach up and you
You turn on the light bulb?
I hit the little stewardess thing. Ding.
I thought maybe you were going to turn the little air
You didn't
thing.
just scream.
Well, I'm calm. I'm a calm, cool, collected.
Was there like a gargoyle type of monster thing that's out on the
What
plane?
movie was that, Rob?
Twilight Zone, the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it wasn't a gargoyle. It was a gremlin.
Oh,
Come on.
gremlin.
Sorry about
Sorry,
that.
excuse me.
It's
Gargoyle. It's just sitting there frozen on the wing
Right.
in stone.
But that was in a storm at night. This was a nice, calm, evening with good light and everything. So the stewardess comes over, and I'm like, look out! The wings on fire. And she goes, "Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I'll let the pilot know. Can you please lower your shades, sir? We're about to start the in-flight movie."
Were they showing Twilight Zone, the movie?
Exactly. Snakes on a plane.
Yeah, right, exactly. So,
The in-flight entertainment's going to be wing on fire tonight.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So, what do you mean, right? She's like, just calm down, sir. I'll go. I'm sure they're aware of this, but I'll go let them know. I'm a little amped up, but I have no control of the situation, and everyone else seems to just be like, their shades are down.
Yeah.
They're
looking at you like, why are you making noise?
They're sipping their cocktails. They're waiting for their meal to get served. And
This must have been a while ago if they were serving meals.
It was a nice long flight. It was comfortable.
Okay, did this really happen?
Well, I mean, it's a good allegory.
All right, so where are you going with this?
Well, like, okay, I feel like I'm on this plane. I'm on a journey with everybody else on the planet, and I'm looking out and I'm seeing freaking wings on fire, and everybody else has got the shades down and is like drinking booze and watching a stupid movie, and no one in authority is even like seriously handling the situation.
Yeah, they're just trying to placate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a problem with stupid movies? Huh?
No.
You want to throw down?
But I mean, yeah, it can drive you nuts, right?
Yeah.
Well, it can drive you so nuts that you'll put on a Santa Claus suit and protest at Exxon on Christmas Eve, right?
I feel for the guy. I can totally relate to Ken.
Well, yeah, let's talk about who that was.
Yeah.
This guy's name is Ken Ward. He's got a friend that lives here where we are in Corvallis named Leonard Higgins. So Leonard Higgins and Ken Ward, they're what you would call valve turners. They got together with some others and colluded and decided we got to do something about climate change. They're like you on the plane with the wing on fire. They're like, no one's doing something. Fuck it, let's do something. So they got together and they coordinated an event where they shut down the pipelines that were delivering tar sands oil to the United States from Canada. And a really incredible.
That's ballsy.
Yeah, it's clearly a criminal action. You got to trespass. You got to shut these valves down.
Yeah.
And was this before or after he was at the gas station on Christmas Eve?
I think it was after, but I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
it was.
actually-
It was.
Okay.
This sort of pre-staged him getting together with these people and doing something more.
Sort of realized I gotta do something more organized, maybe bigger scale.
Well, and Ken, for his adult life, he's been an activist all along. You know, an environmentalist. Hey, we got to do something about these issues.
Yeah.
And he's done it as a totally legitimate non-profiteer. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you were saying, Jason, as a professional conservation biologist, what's the difference? What am I doing?
Right.
And he just has gotten more and more into it over time to where he's done a lot more radical things. And there was actually a movie that was made about him called The Reluctant Radical.
Yep.
And the chronicles his
it's a great movie.
his reluctance all the way through this, from Santa suits to actually getting arrested.
I found the part of the movie very compelling when he goes to the psychiatrist. Remember that?
Yeah.
What do they do to him?
So he's actually wondering. He's like you on the plane. He's wondering, why isn't anyone else worried about this? Why aren't we raising alarms? Why aren't we questioning? Why can't we get this climate change issue the attention that it needs? And so, because nobody else is with him, he's starting to think, well, what am I nuts? So he goes to see a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist asks him this very blunt question, like, when you tell people how you're feeling and what your concerns are, what do they do? And Ken answers, well, they kind of say, yeah, maybe that's something, and then they go about their lives. And the psychiatrist comes back with, well, when everybody else thinks one way and you're the one who thinks differently, that probably means you got a problem.
Right.
You're wrong, Ken.
Yeah. So let me get you to get on this lithium for a while.
Right.
So Ken's kind of like,
yeah,
I think I'm right, but all right.
Yeah. Pull down the shade. Don't look at the wing on fire, and order a drink.
Yeah.
Let's all self-medicate so this problem won't go away, but we won't be aware of it.
That's right. Well, like a battery in a Tesla car, he gets loaded up with lithium, and he
does he catch on fire?
Well, he probably would. Well, he didn't like it. He realized his emotionally he was tamped down. He didn't like the way he thought. He didn't like his life, and he went back to the psychiatrist and said, "I'm getting off the lithium." and kind of, really sat and thought about it. I mean, he actually went the medical route and tried it, but he really sat and thought and said, no, I'm right. We need to address climate change, and people aren't doing what needs to be done. So, he really explored, am I crazy, or is what's going on out here crazy?
But, that's pretty remarkable, because I would say most people, right, they've already got the shade down on the window, right? And if they get an inkling, that the engine just caught on fire, they're gonna maybe say something. But if other people are not concerned, I mean, they've done these sociological studies of people where, like, you show them two lines, and one's clearly longer than the other, right? Yeah. But if you put them with other people who are all like, no, that shorter line, that one's longer, or they're the same size, then you're going to be like, fuck, I guess they're right. Yeah, they're the same size. So it's understandable where most people will be like, well, nobody else seems to be freaking out about the engine having caught on fire, so I'm just going to
that's the problem.
Assume it's all okay.
We're social creatures, and if we don't get social reinforcement for our version of reality, then we feel nuts. And so often, in order to resolve that, we then will go along with the social norm, even if maybe deep down, God, there's something wrong about this. And I think this is creating a tremendous problems. And there's people that are anxious and upset, and they can't talk about real things. So in order for society to become sane again, and in order for the individuals who are aware, who are looking at the fires, to feel sane, we have to have honest conversations about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to be here. I wanted to have those kind of conversations with you guys and laugh too, because I can't look at that fire and not feel completely messed up about it. And so, it's a way, I want to talk about these issues, and I want to laugh so that I don't cry.
Yeah, laughter is a great way to process this and emotionally cope with this stuff. So,
and mostly I think just to not feel alone. We're lucky we get to interact with people. Not only in my case, people that are smarter than me, but also people that have a shared sense of what reality is, and can commiserate about how fucking nuts everything is.
And in the movie, Ken starts going on these he gets arrested, railroad, they sit on railroad tracks where coal's going to come through.
Stopping a coal train.
Yeah, and these kind of things. And he gets arrested, and he's gleeful because he's getting arrested with 50 other people, and they're going to the cell together, and he's getting out, and he's all grinning, and he's just like, well, this is great because I know I'm not alone in this. And so...
Yeah, that was quite a transformation, because in the Santa Claus suit, he was alone.
He was alone.
And when the police show up, they're like, well, you can either stay here and keep doing this, or you can leave. But if you stay, we're going to arrest you. And he's like, I think I'll just get arrested. He actually makes that. To me, that's way gutsier than doing these bigger things when you have others along for that same reason. We're social creatures. Right. And, truly amazing. But it makes you question yourself. Am I nuts? Why is nobody else talking about this?
Yeah. Well, hopefully this podcast not only will help us feel a little less nuts ourselves, but others listening. I think that there is something, and we've heard this from a lot of people, there is something refreshing and kind of a release when you catharsis. Actually can accept these things, it's sort of the first step to say, okay, this stuff is real. And we're so scared of acknowledging the reality of what's out there, but there is something cathartic about recognizing it. But it's really hard to expect people to do it alone. I mean, Ken is, I would say, a rare bird.
Yeah, we're all living in crazy town. We just got to figure out together how to navigate it.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. That's our show. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the podcast. And while you're at it, rate or review it at iTunes. That really helps get it in front of more people. To learn more, visit postcarbon.org/crazytown. And if you want to actually learn something instead of listening to us bozos, you should check out Post Carbon Institute's Think Resilience course. It's 4 hours, $20, and will seriously change the way you see the world. Catch you next time on the mean streets of Crazy Town.